we talk it out, not fight it out. Call 888 Justice today.
Reggae is global. Reggae is everywhere.
Yeah, reggae is my life, you know, because if it wasn't for reggae, I don't know that walk out saying dead or something.
We have something which the world crave even right now. Reggae is internationally known.
I am a Jamaican.
What is the role of a backbencher in government? I'm glad you asked. They're members of parliament who are not appointed to cabinet. So they sit in the back of the legislature and they apply pressure. They examine what government legislates, participate in parliament debates, raise issues and advocate and question chamber when things don't look straight. Backbenchers represent the constituents in parliament. Backbenchers oversee the interests of citizens, you and me. But how can they be agents of government accountability after them no hold a portfolio? And them and a minister? No. So then how can they facilitate government transparency? And the next thing, them and a front bencher. So how them affect me? You see, a lot of work is in committees. So these portfolio-free MPs with less dire responsibilities are more accessible to you and me. So they help with policy, but it helps if we engage them, you see. So they're not just in the back benches, but on the ground, in the trenches. Though in the back of parliament, we're at the front of their cause. So pause. Find your backbencher at jampja.org.
Good morning, everyone. It is Wednesday, February 19, and we're here for another post-cabinet press briefing. And this morning, I'm honored to be able to go through our regular protocol list at the beginning. And we have the Honorable Favour Williams, our Minister of Finance and the Public Service, with us this morning. We will also be joined by the Honorable Floyd Green, our Minister of Agriculture, Fisheries and Mining. And with us also we have Dr. Kassan Troop, the Permanent Secretary in the best ministry, the Ministry of Education, Skills, Youth and Information. Right, Minister? I know, Minister Williams will not disagree. And we also have with us Ainsley Powell, our Commissioner General of Tax Administration, Jamaica. There are other members of the ministry teams that are here with us, some other specially invited guests. As always, the members of the media and our GIS team and the OPM comms team, Jamaicans watching at home and abroad, a wonderful good morning to you all. Before we start, I always go through some of the things that may have been missed in the news. And the first one I'll talk about was actually from last night. And I had the privilege last night of attending the premiere of Romeo and Juliet Forever, which starred a number of our young people in Jamaica. And the two leads, Romeo and Juliet, were from Haile Selassie High School. And they did an absolutely phenomenal job. It was just so wonderful to sit there and hear our children doing the Elizabethan language and speaking in the Shakespearean language. It was phenomenal. They did a great job. And I have to thank Paul Buckner, who put this program together, bringing Shakespeare and putting Shakespeare in a Jamaican context. I remember seeing the first series that they did, and it was really fantastic to see our schools and our children engaging with Shakespeare in that way. And I have to thank all our drama teachers across our high schools that worked with these students, because it wasn't just Haile Selassie students in the film, it was also students from other high schools across Jamaica. And also have to thank and acknowledge TVJ for their role in bringing this production to life. And it was just phenomenal. And for those of you who have not watched it, you need to watch our brilliant young people. And we always say it, there's talent everywhere. All of our schools have talent. And there are young people just brimming with all of this creativity. And last night was the embodiment of that. And I thank Minister Grange for agreeing to do this and hosting this wonderful premiere for these young people. So please go out and watch it. It's really very good. In terms of other updates that I will give you, Minister Tufton was to be here, but I will use one of his and just remind everyone that more than 220,000 free screening tests have been administered to Jamaicans under the Ministry of Health and Wellness's Know Your Numbers initiative. 80,000 persons have been referred for care. Now, this is really very important. When you're able to test 200,000 people, you're able to diagnose issues early. There are many of these individuals who got tested, did not know that anything was wrong with them. And you're able to do these early interventions. This is, again, another example of a government that cares about its people. That's why we want to test you, so that you can be referred for care. And 80,000 Jamaicans found out that they needed additional care and were dealing with conditions in many instances that they were not aware of. It's a wonderful initiative, and it will be continuing in the next financial year. Also, again, 100 additional buses are being procured for the public transportation system. And that's another big deal. And thanks to Minister Williams, the team at the Ministry of Finance, they've earmarked another $3 billion for 100 additional buses for the public transportation system. And 10 of those, which is important, will have special provisions for Jamaicans living with disabilities. So everybody is a part of this move forward as our country. So we have these designated buses for the persons with disabilities, and these are very, very important. For a lot of our persons living with disabilities, they just want an opportunity to work, be a part of the formal structures, and having transportation is one of those things that really helps them. And so over the last 24 months, would have been able to acquire 250 more buses. That's a very big deal. And so the government is rebuilding the fleet of buses and also opening new routes. You hear it all the time. You have people who are saying, my gosh, I have a new bus service. I can finally take the bus and I'm in comfort. You hear it from those in St. Thomas. You've been hearing it from some of those who are in above Stony Hills and some of the other areas that we've introduced new service. It is really impacting the lives of a lot of people. In terms of the NHT Smart Energy Loan, that's been going very well. For those of you who have not accessed it and you are a mortgager with the NHT, please do so. In just 6 months, we had 275 loans that were approved, and that's a very big deal. And for those of you who don't remember, under the Smart Energy Facility, homeowners can access up to $1.5 million to install energy-saving technology. And that can be solar panels, batteries, water heaters, solar insulation, and other renewable energy solutions. And as we said, 275 individuals have taken access. And so we know Kingston and St. Andrew are the popular ones. If you're not in those areas, please take advantage of it. It is really a fabulous initiative that was announced, and we see individuals taking advantage of it. In addition to that, there is the construction of a special education diagnostic center at the College of Agricultural Science and Education in Portland, which is scheduled for completion in the 25-26 fiscal year. And this is important. And I know as I go around, I get a lot of parents coming to me about their children with special needs. They also come and say that they're on a waiting list for their diagnostic tests to be able to assess the children. And we know that there is a challenge in certain parts of Jamaica where you have to actually be traveling long distances, coming to Kingston, for example, to get your access to that kind of diagnostic testing. So us putting that facility in Portland, and Minister Williams, thank you, in terms of your leadership on that, is really important. And it signals, again, that even those who are vulnerable are part of our plans. And so understanding where our children are and having the access to that kind of diagnostic work is very critical in terms of our approach to meeting our children where they are and being able to provide the services that they need. And this is $180 million. It's not a cheap initiative, but it's an absolutely important one, and that has been allocated for. Also, in terms of tourism, hotels, lots of new hotel construction will be happening. We're expecting the construction of 6 new hotels in the new fiscal year, and I know Minister Bartlett is just waiting to come to PostCap to talk to you all about that. New hotels will add about 5,600 new rooms. There's a lot going on in Jamaica. There's a lot of economic activity. This is a booming country. When you drive around, you see it. When you see the unemployment numbers, it is clear. So there's a lot of work that is happening. And this morning, I am very happy to have the 2 ministers that I have, Minister Williams and Minister Green, who has joined us, to come and talk about more of the phenomenal work that they are doing, and also be open to your questions so that you can ask them about some of the initiatives that they're doing. And so I'm going to start with, of course, I always say it, our first woman leading the Ministry of Finance and doing it so ably, the Honorable Favour Williams. Please make her welcome.
Good morning, everyone. Let me acknowledge colleague Minister Dana Dixon, Minister Green. Let me as well acknowledge Permanent Secretary Dr. Troop and her team from the Ministry of Education, Skills, Youth, and Information. This morning we have with us Commissioner General, Mr. Ainsley Powell, of the Tax Administration of Jamaica. I also have members of my team from the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service. Let me say distinguished guests, members of the media, Jamaicans all. Today I am more than delighted to be here and to officially announce the TAJ's Special Arrears Settlement Program, which was started in late January of this year, and it's designed to bring relief to taxpayers who have accrued interest, penalties, and surcharge on outstanding principal amounts of taxes. We believe that the Special Arrears Settlement Program will alleviate the financial burden on taxpayers by providing an opportunity to clear their debts without the additional costs typically associated with late filing and payments. By waiving these extra charges, the program promotes timely compliance and supports taxpayers in achieving financial stability that will foster continued voluntary compliance. When you look at the tax amount that is outstanding, taxes and all the associated penalties, interest, and surcharges, you are not going to believe this number, but it's approximately $139.3 billion. 42.5% of that is greater than 7 years old. As a government, we were seized with the need to structure the Special Arrears Settlement Program. And, you know, when we consider the many shocks that individuals and businesses have endured over the last 10 years, and also to help the TAJ reduce the arrears, we had to ask the TAJ to structure this program. As you may know, if you look across the world at tax administrations, the standard is to have no more than 10% of the tax collected in arrears. Here in Jamaica, we are at about 23%. So we really need this program to help us as well. And when I talk about the shocks that individuals and businesses have suffered in the last 10 years, I just want to show you a slide. The PIOJ has been collating for us all the events, all the weather events that we've endured in this economy. And the data that you will see dates back to 1999, and we've had 22 weather events, including Rafael and the massive amount of rain in November 2024, and I'm sure colleague Minister Green will never forget the month of November, because even though the agricultural sector loves water, loves the rain, but when you get too much of it, it is not good. These events, as you would agree, have had significant negative impact on the economy. And when we talk about the economy, we're really talking about businesses and individuals. To note, though, 9 of those events have been within the last 10 years. We're talking about drought, we're talking about heavy rain, we're talking about hurricane tropical storms, and the massive impact of COVID in 2020, 2021 that we're still recovering from. Many businesses would have suffered in terms of losing customers, losing income in their business, and so on. Individuals would have had to pull down on their resources if they had such resources in the back. So when we talk about shocks to the economy, again, it's really shock to people and the businesses. And of course, over that time, we've seen the arrears at the TAJ grow to that number I talked about earlier on, $139.3 billion. It was with this in mind that we asked the TAJ to structure this program, and they came back with the innovative title, Special Arrears Settlement Program, with the aim to encourage taxpayers with outstanding principal amounts for selected tax types to pay these amounts by March 31, 2025. over 30,000 taxpayers are expected to benefit. Already, the TAJ is in touch with over 7,500 taxpayers. So if the principal amount is paid by the deadline, the government of Jamaica will waive any unpaid interest, any penalties, any surcharges, and the selected tax type on which penalties, interest, and surcharges will be waived are education tax, corporate income tax, individual income tax, pay-as-you-earn, special consumption tax, general consumption tax, asset tax, partnership income tax. And there are many situations. If your case is under objection, you can still qualify for the waiver. If your case is under appeal, you can still qualify for the waiver. And to get more details of your particular situation, you're encouraged to call the TAJ in the various offices. And I hope many Jamaicans take advantage of this relief that is provided by the government. I will leave you with one slide. Recently, the TAJ did a survey of Jamaicans, and one of the questions they asked was, what are the implications when TAJ does not collect taxes? Jamaicans said the health of the economy would be negatively impacted. 91% of Jamaicans said that. 89% of Jamaicans said the ability for government to pay for social amenities is reduced. 89% said inability to service the country's debt. 87% said inability to invest in infrastructural development. 89% said inability to pay the salaries and wages of public sector workers. 72% said an impact when TAJ does not collect taxes is increase in tax rates. And 88% said inability to establish an optimal budget for the country. And 78% said when you don't collect the taxes, you increase the tax burden on those who pay taxes. It is very encouraging to know that Jamaicans do understand the importance of their tax dollars and of paying their taxes. We do not take this lightly, and we want to take this opportunity to encourage compliance and to say to Jamaicans, that is why this government works hard to not levy new taxes on you, the hardworking people of Jamaica. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Minister, for that, and thank you for putting up the survey results. That was really very, very powerful because it really does say a lot. It says that Jamaicans understand that government works through tax collection, and that was very helpful, Minister. And so we have the Minister with us, and this morning we don't have Naomi, but we have Rasheen Nangle with us, who's going to be leading in terms of the questions from the media. So the Minister of Finance is here. You can ask her questions on what was presented or any other area in relation to finance that you may need any clarification.
Thank you, Minister. Good morning, everyone. I believe we have a question from one of the students from the University of the West Indies. Please stand, state your name, and also the entity you represent. Well, you're from UAE.
Thank you. Morning, everyone. I'm Dante Minto, the Hall Chairman of the Georgia Lane Hall. I just wanted to ask, Minister, well, we hear that there may be a further decrease in the government subvention to tertiary institutions. But I want to ask, can you confirm if that's true or not? But I wanted to ask also, is it possible for us to see student loans being applied to housing in the future?
Okay, on your first question, no, there is no thought of decreasing the subvention to tertiary. If you look at just the allocation that we've made to tertiary over the last several years, there have been increases. With regards to whether or not student loan can provide housing, that is something that I've always spoken about, and now that I'm in the position, that is certainly something we look at, because I always say students who are in tertiary institutions not only need support for their tuition, but they need support for room and board, as it is called in other countries. They need support for their books and so on. Obviously, we're going to depend on you to repay these loans so that others can have the opportunity to utilize it as well. But that is something that we will begin to consider.
Morning, Minister Mahiri from Nationwide here. I believe it was last week the different sectors of medical workers, specifically the Nurses Association, did have a little bit of a protest last week in terms of what they described as ongoing wage issues with the government. As Finance Minister, is there any update you can give us in terms of where those talks are?
Okay, for the nurses, I know that they have been in communication with the Minister of Health and Wellness. I am not aware that it is the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service that's the issue here. I am made to aware it's more internal to the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
Thank you, Minister. We also have a final question.
Morning, Minister. Morning, everyone. Liberan Barrett from the Green Company. Minister, I wanted to ask you, given the budget that the government has announced and the reduction that we have seen in the budget, what is it that you can say to public sector workers who are going to be coming to the bargaining table for new wage agreements this year? What assurances? What is it that you can say to them at this point in time? That's one. And two, given the cut in the capital budget, I wondered, Minister, if you can give us an explanation as to the reason behind those cuts, given that, as we all know, capital spending is one of the ways in which we can spur economic activities.
All right, I'll start with your last question. If you look at the capital budget that was initially put forward during the budget season in 2024-25, you will note that it was in the 60-ish billion range. It was during the fiscal year 24-25, that the capital budget was increased to the 80 billion mark, and that was to allocate funding for Spark and for the REACH program. Spark, as we know, really got started in this year, and so the allocation of 80 billion in this financial year in which we're standing right now, all of that was not spent. So the 62 billion that's allocated in the upcoming fiscal year is indeed an increase over what we're going to end this fiscal year with. It's about an increase of almost 1.5%. And then your other question about the budget overall. Okay, well, I know we're moving into that period. Obviously, we will ensure that we have timely communication with the union heads as they put in their claims. Obviously, within the budget, there is an increase in terms of the allocation for wages and salaries. And as we go through the process, we will have those conversations with union heads about what it is we're able to do within the context of our budget.
Thank you, Minister. Also, we have the last, I hope this is the last, from Mahiri.
All right, forgive me, Minister, but I just heard you mention Spark and Reach, so I figured it was timely to ask, how has Eastern St. Andrew benefited from the Spark and Reach programs?
Well, from the REACH program, very much. REACH reached us, and many of our potholes were done very well, smooth and nice. Spark is just beginning. Within the last 2 weeks, we've seen the workmen from the contractor come in, and they're bringing in their equipment and so on. So I'm expecting work to fully start in a week or so. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Minister. And again, I always say it, we're on a Wednesday morning, we have our ministers come, you can ask anything. And we're opening ourselves up, and this is really an important part of accountability on the part of the cabinet, and that's why we do this. And so you had the student asking, you had the media asking questions. That's really very important to us, that you feel that you can get all of your questions answered by our ministers and that there's no one hiding from the public. We're responsive to you, and you have put us in this position, and we take it very seriously, and we believe we're accountable to all of you. So up next, we have our Minister of Agriculture, Fisheries and Mining, the Honorable Floyd Green with us. And Floyd is another example of just hardworking. He is not feeling the best today, but he's here. And we see that so much in the cabinet. And I have to thank you very much, Minister Green, for still being here this morning and honoring your commitment to be here this morning. So please welcome the Honorable Floyd Green.
Thank you very much to Senator Morris Dixon. If you know, when she asks you to be here, you really have little choice. I do see Permanent Secretary Troop is here and other members from the team from the Ministry of Education and colleague Minister Williams. We'll be handling a couple of matters in relation to agriculture, fisheries, and mining. Starting first, looking at our ongoing dry period. We'll speak a little bit about eggs and the supply of eggs, and then our progress on our national tilapia hatchery. Let me also welcome the students who are here. I'm very, very happy to see the students from Georgia Lane Hall who are here with us. One of the things that we're trying to do at the Ministry of Agriculture is be a lot more proactive, especially in looking at our weather realities and our weather challenges. So we want to ensure that we have a data-driven ministry. There was a time that we used to respond to drought and to weather events genuinely after they occur, but now we've institutionalized planning for them before they even emerge. And this is why we've already crafted a response for our ongoing dry period by looking at the data that we saw for December. So you would have heard, and we all saw how last year was a challenging year, and despite having November that was full of rain, unfortunately, with our climate change realities, when we looked at the data for our December rainfall, 7 of 13 parishes had 53 to 85% of their 30-year mean. So they were less than what they would normally have in December for the past 30 years. We saw a number of parishes being severely impacted, including St. Elizabeth, Manchester, and Clarendon. So while we had not gone into a meteorological drought, we recognized that the averages, we were below the average in these 7 parishes, and as such, we needed to act. We have therefore crafted a 134 million dry period response program to help mitigate the impact of this dry season. 30 million of that amount has been allocated to trucking, 14 million towards RADA, 16 million toward our National Irrigation Commission, so that we can get water to our farmers. We will be engaging and have started that process of engaging private contractors so that we can expedite the delivery, ensuring that farmers in these areas receive adequate water supply. Clearly, we've started with the hardest hit parishes: St. Elizabeth, Manchester, Clarendon, Westmoreland, St. James, and Trelawney are some of the parishes that we've started with. We've also partnered with Food for the Poor, who will be distributing 100 small water pumps, which we think is very, very important, because as we truck water to farmers, we hope that farmers have storage capacity, and in so doing, a lot of them need the water pumps to be able to adequately serve their farms. But we're not just taking an immediate approach. One of the things that we have been doing, and to be honest, this year, we're better able to treat with the dry period than we were the year before, because each year we try to build resilience. So over the last year, we built or enhanced about 11 catchment ponds, so that when the rains did come in November, parishes in Trelawney, St. Elizabeth, Clarendon, Manchester, St. Anne had those catchment tanks that were able to store the water that they're now utilizing now. We're going to continue that program, and the program is twofold. The program is, one, we can partner with private individuals, where private individuals do their own excavation for their catchment pond, and we provide them with the pond liner, or we partner with community groups where we do the excavation, we put in the catchment pond, and we provide the pond liners. And we have done that in a number of areas, including Hindstown in St. Anne and New Pen in St. Mary. So in our $134 million, we have allocated about $10 million to procure 12,500 square meters of pond liners to help the farmers. Additionally, during the course of the last few months, we've distributed 171 irrigation kits and 178 water tanks, again to make our farmers better prepared to deal with this dry period. We are now in procurement for an additional amount. I think we've allocated about $79 million to procure additional tanks and drip hoses to help our farmers. Those should be ready come about March, the end of March, and we will start that distribution. We're also, as a part of our response, procuring mulch. And if you are familiar with what we do, especially in South St. Elizabeth, we use the grass to maintain the moisture in the soil. Very, very expensive crop. And as such, we've allocated about $8 million to provide some support to the farmers in that regard. So I want our farmers to rest assured that the Ministry of Agriculture stands ready to help them. If they are in need of water during this period, please contact your RADA officer, your RADA office. If you have a National Irrigation Office in your area, please contact the National Irrigation Commission. I'll move quickly into some of the challenges that we're having regarding egg and egg supply. We have seen a rebound in a number of our areas, especially our vegetable lines. We have seen our tomatoes, our sweet peppers, a lot of our green leafy vegetables come back on the market in good supply. However, the egg industry still remains under pressure. And this pressure started in Hurricane Beryl, where we saw over 43,000 laying heads being lost to Hurricane Beryl. And that has severely impacted our domestic egg production. In fact, not only did we see this amount of loss, but even the birds which survived Hurricane Beryl, as you would have heard from the president of our Egg Farmers Association, went through a period of trauma where they were not laying in their normal production numbers. And this was compounded by the rains that we had to the end of October and all of November, which again affected our production numbers significantly. We are expecting, based on the production numbers that we have forecasted for January to June 2025, we are expecting to see a 26% reduction in our production of eggs. In fact, last year we would have produced 123 million eggs in January to June in 2024. This year we're projecting to produce 95.4 million eggs. We do understand that that also provides some pressure in relation to pricing. And we have seen where there's limited supply, some increases in relation to price. It's also providing some pressure in relation to pullet prices. Pullets are ready to lay hens. And we have seen a 5% increase in relation to pullet prices. We are doing a number of things, and we have been doing some things to help the industry. In fact, we would have distributed up to the end of December about 50,000 pullets ready to lay hens across our hardest hit parishes. Again, we have seen some challenges, as I said, with the weather pattern and those pullets and their production numbers. What we're planning to do and what we've started to do is to target our large-scale users of eggs and to allow them to be able to import liquid eggs, especially for our baking and hospitality industry, so that that will allow more whole eggs for local consumers. So we have already reached out to a number of our baking companies. We've already reached out to a number of our hotels. In fact, the Jamaica Hotel and Tourist Association did write to me, and we did indicate that that is the direction that we're pursuing. We are not allowing the importation of whole eggs. It would have to be liquid, it will have to be powdered, and it will only be for our hospitality sectors or our baking sectors. The other thing that we're doing is that we're working with Jamaica broilers and Caribbean broilers to see how we can secure hatching eggs from alternative markets. If you've been paying attention to what has been happening in the United States, you realize that the challenge with egg supply is not just a local challenge. In fact, they have a more severe challenge in the USA. USA is normally where a lot of our hatching eggs come from. So we have tasked the team at the Veterinary Services Division to work with Jamaica broilers and Caribbean broilers to explore alternative markets, including Belgium and the Netherlands, to see if we can secure hatching eggs from those alternative markets. The other thing is that clearly we're collaborating with the Jamaica Egg Farmers Association and the Jamaica Hotel and Tourist Association to look at the demand as we go through the rest of the year, especially for our bakeries, for our tourism sector, to ensure that we're always able to satisfy the demand and reduce some of the strain on our retail sector. We do expect that pre-burial levels will return by July 2025 once there are no external disruptions. We will continue to monitor and adjust interventions. In fact, we are going to be distributing some more pellets right now. We're in the process of procuring that so that we can help drive the revitalization of our egg industry. Finally, we are focusing a lot of attention on aquaculture and trying to ensure that we can feed ourselves by having a robust aquaculture sector. One of the things that we're doing is that we're constructing a new state-of-the-art tilapia hatchery, and that is now 60% complete, which is truly a transformational step in boosting our local aquaculture sector. We are investing $574 million in our new state-of-the-art hatchery, and that is being supported by JCIF and the World Bank. This is located at Twickenham Park in St. Catherine. I was very happy to go on a tour of this last week to see where we are, and we are progressing well despite some early delays. We are progressing well, and we do expect that we will be complete by the second quarter of this new financial year. The big plus from our new hatchery is that as it is now, we produce about 1 million advanced fry per year. This will increase our capacity to 5 million advanced fry per year, helping us to supply high-quality tilapia stock to the market. The other thing is that our new hatchery will be fully run by renewable energy, right? So we are putting in solar, and that will clearly reduce our operational costs and align with our direction to ensure that we have climate-smart agricultural initiatives. It is a biosecure facility by design, so we'll have improved disease control and breeding efficiency. We have some targets. We want to increase our fishery sector contribution to GDP by 50% by 2027, and this is a big area. Additionally, we may not recognize how much imported fish we consume. So one of the drives is to reduce our dependency on imported fish by producing more of tilapia and strengthen our food security. And additionally, this will create employment opportunities for our farmers. There are two more things that we're working on in aquaculture that I was able to tour last week, Monday or Tuesday. Freshwater prawn. So we are going to be doing, and we have constructed now, a prawn hatchery. And we are doing our first pilot project. It was very interesting to see. We will be able to roll out probably another 6 months where we'll be able to supply prawn to our market. Again, if you know that St. Elizabeth has the best peppered shrimp in the world, in a place called Middle Quarters, and they have had real challenges getting a consistent supply. So we are going to be ramping up the supply, and we do believe we will have people who will go into the area of producing freshwater prawn. The other thing that we're doing, for a long time we've spoken about our ornamental fish industry. and the potential that Jamaica has in taking advantage of the significant demand in North America for ornamental fish. Unfortunately, one of the big challenges that our ornamental fish farmers have had is having an export clearinghouse, somewhere that when they're ready to send their fish, they can put it, store it in a secure location, and then transport it. So we have embarked on an ornamental fish farming project, which does include training, infrastructure support, market access, but more importantly, we are about 90% complete in developing an export clearinghouse facility at the aquaculture division. We're set to open this in the next quarter. This will support the growth of ornamental fish farming export. We're working very closely with the Jamaica Ornamental Fish Farmers Association to finalize the preparations and to ensure that farmers are fully equipped to take advantage of this opportunity. We will have a special focus on youth, women, and at-risk communities to help build out our ornamental fishing sector so that they can take advantage of our near-shore market. So, we continue to navigate the various challenges. I want to assure our farmers that support is here in relation to drought mitigation and water resilience. I want to ensure our consumers that we're working with our egg farmers to ensure egg supply stability by ensuring that the biggest users will have access to external supply so that our whole eggs will be available in our retail sector. And we're advancing the aquaculture sector through the completion of the National Tilapia Hatchery, our prawn shrimp hatchery, and our ornament fish farming export clearing facility. We recognize the resilience of our farmers and value the partnership with our stakeholders to support the sector's recovery and transformation. Thank you, everybody.
My goodness. What an excellent presentation. I was taking notes, Minister, and it's clear that you are doing a lot of work for our farmers, and it's very impressive work, and I want to thank you, and I thank you for the work you did post-burial, which you don't talk enough about, in terms of all the support to the agricultural sector after. We all know what happened after burial when we went to market and we couldn't find produce and the price was exorbitant, and you know I tried the tomato planting myself and only 2 came. And so it's very good now when you go into the market, you see the improvement and you see the work that Minister Green has done. And so I thank you for that. On behalf of Jamaicans like me who could not cultivate to save their lives, I thank you for the work you did with our farmers. We're going to open it up for questions now from the media, from anyone who is here.
Morning, Minister Green. Mahiri Sira from Nationwide here. In light of the recent tabling of the estimates of expenditure, is there anything that you as Agriculture Minister are excited for or hopeful for in terms of what's within the contents of the table?
So a number of things. Very, very excited. And the minister is not here, but I really want to thank the Minister of Finance and the team and the cabinet for continuing to prioritize agriculture. One, I'm excited that we're going to break ground for the PJ Plains irrigation scheme. That will be our biggest irrigation scheme ever. We do have some allocations in this year's budget, I think over $1.3 billion in that regard to start that work, and we do plan to break ground hopefully by mid-year, and that will bring water from the Black River to the plains of PJ, our most productive areas, especially parts of Flagaman, Greenfield, all the way up to Top Hill, 3,000 hectares. That will completely transform our agricultural production, and that is a project that was spoken about since the 1970s. And we're just getting it started. So I'm very, very excited about that. I'm excited about the allocation for our agricultural wardens. We have about $377 million for agricultural wardens. This will strengthen our fight against perennial larceny. Again, this was envisioned from the 1980s, never really got it off the ground. We're getting it off the ground this year. We've already done recruitment and we're ready to start in that regard. I'm happy with the continued support of our production incentive program. So when we started this journey as a government, Our production incentive program, which is where we provide direct support to our farmers, was about 200 million, 300 million. For the past 3-4 years, and this year again, it's over $1 billion. So this year it's $1.2 billion. So I'm very, very happy for that. I'm happy for the increases in our farm roads. We've moved from 670 million to 900 million. Very, very good. And we'll be able to help more farmers with access. So we are excited. We do believe that we'll be able to achieve a lot this year and continue on the work that we've started.
Yes, Minister. And I also realize that in your specific capacity, you actually have to oversee 3 different road programs, because you have Spark and Reach as an MP, and you also have the Farm Road program that the ministry is overseeing. Could you just give a brief synopsis as to where those 3 are at this current moment?
Okay, good. So our Farm Road program, last year we started with $670 million, and we got an additional 200 million to carry to 870. I think at last check we had completed over 51 road projects, and we have an additional 10 or so that we're planning to do, and this is right across the length and breadth of Jamaica. Part of what we've started to do, we did a launch for our farm road program, and we've started road openings. We've had openings in St. Elizabeth, in St. Anne. We've done roads in every single parish, so we're continuing that. I know we have already scoped $230 million in roads to start with the upcoming financial year. Part of what we've been doing is trying to ensure that we do the scoping, we do all the bill of quantities beforehand, so that we can hit the ground running, so that we don't have the challenge of not expending the resources. So in fact, we did so well last year that we completely finished our budget, right? And we want to continue on that. So that's going well. In relation to Reach and Spark, Reach has significantly helped, especially in Southwest St. Elizabeth. The reality, I think people don't appreciate how challenging we had it outside of our houses that were destroyed with Hurricane Beryl. What would have happened across the constituency is that after Hurricane Beryl, every single road was blocked. So the resources had to be spent initially on clearing all of those roads, and clearly this was unplanned for expenses. So what it did mean is that our road network did not see the usual quarterly patching program, and we've just started to catch up now, having gone through Hurricane Beryl. So the Reach, which came in and helped us to target specific communities, and we have targeted at least 7 communities under the Reach program. That has made a big, big impact. Additionally, the $2 billion that was allocated by the Prime Minister in terms of emergency patching, that has helped significantly, especially in our main thoroughfares that lead from Southfield all the way down to Black River, Luana, to Black River, and to Border. So that has helped. Spark, we're looking forward to it. We do expect that Spark will start before the end of February. We do have 2 roads that are in the first package. I think I really want to commend the Minister and the NAA and the approach that was taken from the Prime Minister. 1, the consultation, right? So people literally came and advocated for their roads. 2, the transparency, so people can see the 10 roads that have been put forward. And 3, the sort of approach to doing holistic projects, right? So we do expect some work will start in the middle quarters to Rockland area. We know that some work will start in Slipe, and there are other roads that we have programmed.
All right, and final question is to Senator Dr. Morris Dixon. All right, so on Sunday, the JLP announced that George Wright, Central Westmoreland MP, would be reinstated. And since then, the People's National Party has come out condemning the move. We've also seen where gender activists such as Professor Opal Adisa Palmer, I believe, and Dr. Nadine Spence were also critical of the move. As a member of the JLP and as a woman, what's your reaction to George Wright being reinstated to the JLP?
That's an interesting question, and you're at post-cabinet press briefing, and just to note, we did not discuss that at cabinet. But having said that, I think it's a great opportunity for us to discuss an important matter, which is, gender-based violence. And so I agree that it is something that we should discuss. I think my only disappointment is that we're discussing it within this kind of a context. It is a very big issue in our country, and it permeates many different parts of society. And there are many people who have been accused of domestic violence in many different parts and pockets of our country. And it is something that we have to look at. It is something we have to discuss. And I know as an administration, we've done a lot of work, legislatively and otherwise, in terms of having the shelters for the women, in terms of the sexual harassment policy. And I should note that this week at Cabinet, we did approve the tribunal for the sexual harassment tribunal. So we don't just talk about the issues, we actually endeavor to fix it. We also know that redemption is important. And in our country, we've always been that kind of a country that believed that there are second chances. And when we talk about domestic violence, it's really a very complex matter, because invariably you have issues in relation to what persons would have experienced growing up, what they would have seen in their communities, what may seem normal to them. And it's quite complex when you talk about it. In this particular case, and you would have seen the reports too, in terms of counseling, I think that's a very important thing, and that's a very important discussion that we also have to have in terms of the role of counseling, because we know this is an issue all across our country, on both sides of the political spectrum, from the rich to the poor. All over Jamaica, gender-based violence is a problem, and it's something that we need to fix. It's not necessary for us to be politicizing it. It is a problem. And I know for me as a woman, and having discussed these matters with other women who have experienced this kind of violence, it is something we have to address. But it's not one that you address solely from the standpoint of the woman. You also have to address it from the standpoint of the males who may be involved, and you have to do the counseling. And in this case, there was counseling, and you know, in our country, there is a stigma around counseling. There's a stigma around men doing counseling. And so for me, I see there are kernels in this situation that are actually quite positive, and that we could use in a positive manner to talk about how we move forward. There are many men in our country who have been perpetrators of violence against women. And some of them, yes, they're good people. And I think, as Christians, we believe that there is redemption for them. And we believe that if they do the work, that we can't say in society, okay, we're going to shun them. Because I believe the real thing is for us to have the real conversations, acknowledging that this is an issue, and acknowledging what we need to do, which is support the women, give them their voice, protect them as best as we can. But also, we have to talk to our men. We start with our schools. We have to do it in our schools in terms of talking about the norms. They may be learning this at home, seeing it at home, seeing their father do it and thinking it's normal. We in our education system have to be able to show what does a healthy relationship look like. We also have to do it in our universities. We have to do it. I went to one school where they had a club for young men, and that club was about teaching them how to be good men. That's the kind of conversation we want to have, because it is, in fact, a pervasive problem in our country.
Thank you, Minister. We have the final question.
Thanks. I have a couple of questions. One for you, Minister, one for Minister, a couple for Minister Green.
Sure.
And if I could just follow up on my colleague's question. The People's National Party women yesterday, they specifically named you. And what they said is, to Jamaicans, is that if you are going around campaigning and to speak about, the policies of the JLP, that your silence, you should be asked to explain your silence on the George Wright issue. And I wondered if you could just indicate what would your explanation be if you're asked to explain why you have not been more outspoken on the George Wright issue.
So you're asking, okay.
No, just
All
giving
right,
an opportunity.
okay. Sure.
And for Minister Green, the $130 million project that you spoke about, I wondered if you could just kindly disclose the name of the implementing agency and how will the beneficiaries be selected. That's one. And then secondly, in relation to the reduction in the egg production, I wondered, Minister, if also you could indicate, when you say pressure, are you speaking about, just so that all of us are clear, are you speaking about an increase in the price? And if so, can you speak to what level of increase you have seen or has been reported to you? And also, if the ministry has done any sort of investigation to determine how much of those increases, if there are any, how much of it is justified?
All right, you want me to go first?
No problem.
I'll go. I'll just answer your question. I don't know that there is silence. I talk a lot. I go to a lot of places. I'm here on Wednesdays, and no one has asked. So the first question I've gotten on this matter was just now from Mahiri, and I have given my response. And I think my response is very clear in terms of this matter and this issue, which is pervasive in our country, and it is something we have to tackle, and it is something we tackle on multiple fronts. And I believe that the administration has shown that it's an administration that very much cares about the welfare of women. It's not just talk. When you look at the legislative record of this administration, it is clear that we are not just in the business of talking. We're in the business of finding solutions. And we're also very much clear that the problem has to be fixed on multiple fronts. You have to confront the women, protect the women, and you also have to deal with the societal norms that have allowed this to be pervasive in our country. And that is what we're doing as an administration.
Thank you, Lidvert. So in terms of the breakdown and the responsible entities, so the 134 million that we've put towards treated with our dry period is across multiple agencies. So 30 million of it will go towards trucking of water. 40 million of that 30 million will be administered through RADA, and RADA we expect will bring on board private contractors, so persons can contact their RADA officer. Additionally, we do expect the extension officers who are out in the field will be recommending farmers. Additionally, we've put 16 million to our National Irrigation Commission, so clearly they already operate in a number of areas, so people can contact the irrigation office directly for that support. And I know that that has started and water has started to be trucked. We have about $79 million that will go towards the National Irrigation Commission towards procuring tanks and drip hoses. Right? So that procurement has already started. It will be a mix. You will have tanks just for farmers directly, but you will also have larger tanks that we will be targeting groups of farmers, community groups, right? Again, people can contact the National Irrigation Commission. We do have a fairly good idea of the production zones that are being challenged now from the dry periods, and we use the data. So we use the data from the Meteorological Service, we use the data from our farm, from our extension officers out in the field. $8 million towards grass mulch that will be done through the Agro-Invest Corporation. They normally procure, and then they work with RADA in relation to the distribution. And then I think we have about $10 million towards our pond liners that will be done through RADA. Again, extension officers identify the farmers. Farmers can reach out to us, especially those farmers who are trying to participate in the private partnership program where you do your own excavation and then you reach out to us to help you with the pond liner. So that is the breakdown. In relation to our egg supply, so again, we do go out and capture data in relation to prices. Oftentimes what we do is report the data. I don't want to give the impression that we set prices, and sometimes when you speak about the prices, people think you're saying that this is what the price should be. What we have seen is a mix. We have seen areas where prices haven't changed at all. We've seen areas where prices have gone up slightly, right? What I will do is we normally do a publication every end of week through the ministry where we capture a whole barrage of prices. I think we have incorporated eggs in that. What we have seen is, what we can speak to because we've been informed, is that pullet prices, the prices for layer chicken, have gone up about 5%, right? From, I think it's 1,500 to 1,600, right? So we have seen that, and we have been informed of that because we really only have two main suppliers of laying hens, and those are our two major companies. But I do believe that based on some of the steps that we're taking now, by reducing the pressure on the retail side, by ensuring that our bakeries and our hotels have a consistent supply, then we will see moderation. I don't think we'll see significant increases in the prices.
Thank you, Minister Green. That's it.
Whether or not the increases that have been reported are justified, is there any indication at all? In other words, how do we know that people are not sort of trying to benefit from that shortfall?
So again, what we see in agriculture, and I do, make the choice, and sometimes we do have to guard against it, but large agriculture responds to demand and supply, right? Because we have a fairly consistent demand across all things. So we know, for example, how much eggs we consume on a monthly basis. So we can say, for example, in this case, that egg production has declined. When we start to question is when we see, for example, the production not decline, but the prices are going up. Or when we see the production has returned, but the prices are not going down in accordance with the return. And that's why in January in Parliament, I did share very openly what we were seeing at the farm gate for a number of our crops that had returned, our tomato, our sweet pepper. And we did that to advise the market that these things have come back. So if you're going to your retail store and you're not seeing significant reduction in prices, something is wrong. Shop around. But in relation to eggs, clearly there's been a reduction. And based on our projection, we do project over 20% reduction in production for the first 6 months of this year.
Thank you. Back to you, Minister Dixon.
All right, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Minister Green. And we're at the end of today's post-cabinet press briefing. I thought it was a very good press briefing. We heard from the Minister of Finance, and then we heard from our Minister of Agriculture, who so ably helped us in terms of all of us running around looking for eggs. He was able to contextualize the issue and to let us know that we're expecting by July that things will be back to post-burial numbers in terms of egg supply, and also that there are other initiatives that are at play right now to try to ease the issues in terms of the limited supply. And so, as always, I say this is there's a lot of work going on in the government. These are just two of the ministers. There were other ministers who wanted to come today, but we decided to just do two today. But our ministers are always here. They're always ready and willing to talk about the policies, talk about the initiatives that they are pursuing, because at the end of the day, all of us, we're all doing it for our country, and we really believe that Jamaica can reach that potential that we all know it can. And that's why we do what we do, and that's why we come here claiming and saying we want accountability. Ask us the questions. Ask us the hard ones too. And no question will go unanswered. And so I look forward to seeing you at our next post-cabinet press briefing. And as always, God bless all of you who are watching, and God bless this wonderful country that we all love. See you next time.